Okay, hey everyone, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a really cool little comparison for you guys, really just showcasing two of the best one and done Seiko divers for around $500. And that is considering that is 2025. Yes, there have been a number of affordable Seiko divers that really scratch the itch that have been very, very popular over the years, but I think these two represent great value now. Now, in terms of the brand history, they were founded back in 1881. They are Japanese in origin, have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end. And these watches are dive watches. Some key common characteristics in design which you're looking for divers. Of course, you want to find water resistance, typically some type of screw down crown. You're going to want something that's tough, legible with a dive time bezel, and a diver extension is always nice if on bracelet. On the left hand side, you have your SRPE93 Turtle-Reissue, and on the right you have the SRPL13 Mini Samurai. Both of these watches were sourced through Mark at Long Island Watch. He is an authorized dealer for Seiko timepieces. I actually purchased this Turtle-Reissue from him a while back, and I even sourced this awesome genuine Tropic brand strap through his shop as well, where he also sells the straps. And then this Mini Samurai is actually a more recent loaner that's had a bit of an extended stay because I've just been that taken by it, and I want to create more content around this piece because I think it is that good. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, now I think these two definitely represent great different ends of the spectrum in terms of their styling, although in terms of their value proposition, I think they're both equally really well suited for those daily one and done type of dive watches. Of course, the Turtle-Reissue definitely leans more into that retro aesthetic with that classic Seiko cushion style case, the iconic 4 o'clock crown, and the split indice at 12. This just looks like a Seiko diver. And for those of you that are looking for a Seiko diver, especially one on a rubber strap, which some people say, hey, a Seiko diver belongs on a rubber strap, you have something here that absolutely scratches that itch. But for those of you that are looking for something a little bit more modern, contemporary, and dare I say even more versatile, you have something like the Mini Samurai, which is at a glance with that 40 millimeter diameter there, very, very classic proportions in terms of dial to bezel ratio. You may or may not recall, certain silhouettes from brands like Rolex or Tudor. But the nice thing is the more you get into the details of this watch, the angles, that very specific knurling on the bezel grip and that crown, you're going to really feel how signature this is to Seiko. It's a bit of a deeper cut in terms of the design layout and those callbacks to different types of watches through the years, but it is definitely very clearly Seiko. So even if you're not a Seiko fan, something like this might be able to scratch the itch within your collection because it's ultimately in-house. It's from a historically significant brand that has a lot of, just solid street cred and chops when it comes to developing professional grade dive watches. So I think that's great, especially on this 3-link bracelet. I'm more of a bracelet guy, and this bracelet is one of the better bracelets you've ever been able to get from Seiko, thanks to the robust build and just how I would say balanced everything feels in terms of design, the weight of it. It's just a really, really versatile setup. Now, in terms of some of the differences, guys, you're going to get 45 millimeters versus 40. You're going to get 13 millimeters thick versus 12.3. And in terms of lug, you're going to have 48 versus 49. So interestingly enough, both of these are going to wear really well. Of course, this is going to be big, but it's going to wear smaller. And this is going to be more in that kind of sweet spot that's going to wear really, really well. But it also has a lot going on in terms of the tricks with the angles and all the cuts and facets that are going to make it a bit more complex to look at. Whereas here, you're going to have something that, again, is going to just feel quite organic and smooth by comparison. Also, you're going to have that old school tilted chapter ring there, which, you know, has been an alignment challenge over the years, not just for Seiko, but I mean, a lot of brands really. And versus here, you can have a more contemporary take with that steel rehaut, and then having all of the indexing just done directly on the dial. Also, though, the nice thing is both of these are going to be great in terms of low light legibility because you're going to have Seiko Lume Bright. And with this SRPE Turtle-Reissue, the SRPE93, you do get that extra lume pip there on the outside of the day date complication. So you're going to have great legibility. And then here they had a different take. Of course, they decided to make a small circular punch out for the date there with a nice offset, and the actual disc of the date is nicely offset so that you can actually have it parallel to the rest of the text on the dial, which I think is great. Also, the circular punch out makes it just more of an integrated feel, which again, I can appreciate. So both of these are really, really nice. They both have 120 click bezels. They both use Hardlex mineral. And it works. They both have aluminum inserts at that are coated. They both have shielded lume pips at 12 o'clock. One has 22 millimeter lugs. One has 20 millimeter lugs. They both have drilled lugs, so you got a lot of options from that standpoint. And they're both divers 200 meters ISO compliant. Also, in terms of the movements, you're going to have both 4R movements, one of 4R36 with a day-date complication, and then one of 4R35 with just the date. They both beat at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour, and they both have a 41-hour power reserve, so that's pretty nice. Let's go ahead and check out the bezel action here. Classic Seiko, low resistance, very light, almost hollow, some might say tinny, but again, this is a tool watch. Nice balance between audible clicks and smoothness. 120 clicks, very nice. Now let's check out the new kid in town. Ooh, very nice. Let's get it to focus here. Okay. In terms of the tactile click, definitely a bit clickier. Equally as smooth. Also a bit of a heavier detent in terms of the level of force you're going to have to do to turn this. I like it. Ooh, it's nice. All right, also lines up quite well as well. So yeah, these two, again, similar yet different. Specs wise, they're very similar. Price wise, quite similar. Of course, you can get a nice deep discount from Market Long Island watches. For under $400, you can get this, although the full MSRP is going to be closer to $500, versus this going to be a little over $5 at $575. And definitely stay tuned, of course, for any types of discounts, or you can reach out to Mark directly and his team and kind of see what you're looking at, if there's any upcoming sales or anything to save money. But yeah, I think both of these are really, really cool options and could absolutely scratch that itch. Of course, this is within that price point. If you're really looking for that kind of one and done Seiko dive watch, I think even today's new modern Marine Master 300, the SLA079, would be my top choice. But of course, that's a pretty expensive watch compared to these two. And I think these two definitely offer you a whole lot for the money, which for some people is something that they always will tie to the Seiko brand in terms of the fact that they can be very value oriented. So with that said, let's actually get these pieces on the wrist and see how they wear. Look at that. That wears perfectly on my 7.5-inch wrist. Of course, my wrist is on the larger side of average, but you can see it's also a pretty round, tall wrist, so it's not like it's wide, flat, and super accommodating. So I do have to be considerate of ultimate dimensions, lug to lug, all of that. But man, I think both of these work really well. Check this out. Look at how beautifully centered that is. It's a larger watch, but it doesn't feel oversized. It feels full-sized, versus this feels more like that kind of sweet spot in terms of the sizing. Of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to get a fair amount of perspective distortion due to the focal length, and it's going to just make the watch seem a lot larger than it actually is. Check that out, right? So that's one of the reasons why when you're trying to take a picture for Instagram, sometimes your watches always seem ginormous unless you're wearing an old school vintage watch, right? So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low here, and then just tighten up the frame so that you guys can still get a detailed look, but just add a bit of a true aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. Guys, this is a looker. Look at the angles. Oof, that classic black and steel setup. The flat nature, the bezel to dial ratio, the nice full-sized indices, nice full handset for ultimate legibility. I just dig it. This thing is sweet. And again, it's not super expensive. It is not, you know, Marine Master pricing, but at the same time, you are still getting such a similar experience in terms of that full Seiko diver, that Prospex experience. And then for a little less money, you can even get something that is going to recall a little bit more of historical significance in terms of that more retro aesthetic and that more classically Seiko styled case in terms of what you kind of recognize Seiko for. Look at the undercuts, the beautiful organic lines there, the kind of soft nature of the look of a cushion case diver, but it all comes together and still feels quite robust and again quite purposeful, and definitely feels like a tool watch. And look at how flat that lays. Look at that. I love how they make the mid case just taper away and feel very, very thin. You can see the secret turtle there, right? There's the turtle's head, and here's two flippers, and there's the turtle shell. So you can see very, very cool with that Seiko Turtle-Reissue. But something about this for me, I mean, this little mini samurai just scratches the itch overall in terms of, like, you might not even be looking for a Seiko diver. You might just be looking for a great everyday daily diver, daily driver, desk diver, and this absolutely has you covered. And again, it's from a legitimate brand who make watches, who make movements, who have done things within the dive watch space that are, again, historically significant. They didn't just, you know, follow a bunch of styles, and they're not trying to recapture or recreate somebody else's aesthetic. They have their own design language. They have their own tech. They have their own accomplishments historically, and I think that's very cool. So with that said, let's actually get these off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, check that out. Great Lume bright from both. You can see it looks like the Mini Samurai is a bit more in focus at the moment, but let's go ahead and shift the focus over to that turtle. Still very, very sharp in terms of how that renders, and again, very, very bright. So Lume bright, looking good on both accounts. I'd say it's pretty negligible between the two in terms of kind of who does it better. It's more about the aesthetic and the actual design of surface area, not necessarily the application. Now, getting to what I like to always work in, which is going to be that low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see with these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And look at that, guys. There's that nice faint little, it's similar to the Pelagos 39, that little faint sunray dial that you really can't capture most of the time, but depending on the lighting, you're going to get that very subdued sunray which is nice. I think it adds a nice bit of texture versus the more traditional fully matted setup there that you're going to see above on that Seiko Turtle-Reissue, which looks fantastic. And then thankfully both of them play well with those matted finishings on the bezel insert, which do play well off of the dials as well. So really, really great to look at. Of course, you're going to have a bit more of visual interest and light play looking at the additional brush surfaces that are going to go on that stainless steel bracelet. Of course, there are variations of the Turtle-Reissue that are going to get you a steel bracelet. It's just not a great one, to be quite honest. So if that's your thing, cool. For me, I think this turtle just really sings on this outstanding tropic strap. You can see the different types, even the way that it plays with the light even suits the aesthetic as well. Look at that. Look at the light play on the very subtle basket weave pattern on that rubber strap. And then, yeah, you still get some great looks. This thing, I mean, look at that. I mean, it is absolutely just a showcase of these two pieces. Why don't I hit it with the black light, really supercharge these bad boys for you. You can see very, very clean. And of course, because of, you know, how much light that the lens is needing to bring in, it's hard for it to kind of focus on both of these watches at once. So you can see still very sharp in terms of the application. If anything, the softness is just coming from the focus. So let's go ahead, get the lights back on here and get into some closing thoughts. Ooh, these are both great looking pieces. So for me, guys, closing thoughts: while either of these models could easily serve as your one and done Seiko diver, each of them represent a different end of the value spectrum. The Turtle-Reissue brings a classic and even iconic Seiko design and delivers it in a very pure and uncomplicated form, while the Mini Samurai offers a more versatile contemporary take that can more directly compete with other popular divers while still feeling very much like a Seiko dive watch. If you prefer a more classic vibe and believe that a Seiko diver belongs on a rubber strap, particularly a rubber dive strap, then the Turtle really fits that bill. And if you're looking for something better suited, to everyday wear with a silhouette that also has ties to the brand's past while offering more broad general appeal, the Mini Samurai with its more traditional 3 o'clock crown and a clean steel bracelet delivers something that can be worn across a wider array of situations with less of a need to rely on brand nostalgia. With that said, which would you choose and why? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you liked the video, please hit like. And if you're not already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.